For 28 years, I was the one who kept the peace. Not because I was the oldest, not because anyone asked me to. I just did it. The way you do things in a family that runs on tension and unspoken rules. My sister got the praise. I got the role of keeping everyone calm enough that we could all sit at the same table. Her name is Colette. 4 years older than me, married to a man named Fletcher who makes more money than he has sense. They have one daughter, Penelope, who turned 7 last spring. My husband is Joel. We have 2 kids, our son Archer, who just turned 6, and our daughter Bea, who was 4 at the time this all happened. I want to be clear about something before I tell you the rest of this. I loved my niece. I genuinely did. I sent her birthday cards with little drawings inside because she told me once that she liked when I drew flowers. I showed up to her school plays. I remembered the name of her stuffed elephant. I was present in her life in every way my sister let me be, which was less and less the more Fletcher's business grew. It started the way these things always do, with something small enough to explain away. 2 years before the graduation party incident, my sister stopped including my kids in the cousins' playdate photos she posted online. Not a big deal, I told myself. Maybe the photos were just taken when mine weren't there. Maybe I was reading into it. Then Penelope's 6th birthday came around, and Colette called me the week before to let me know the party was immediate family only. Just grandparents, just Fletcher's side. It's a small thing, she said. You understand. I understood. I always understood. That was my whole personality. My husband Joel looked at me when I got off the phone and said, "Why do you keep giving them the benefit of the doubt?" I didn't have a good answer. I said something about keeping the peace, keeping the relationship, keeping the door open for my kids to know their cousin. Joel nodded slowly in the way he does when he disagrees, but knows I'm not ready to hear it yet. So I didn't go to the 6th birthday party. I sent Penelope a gift anyway, a watercolor set, because Colette had mentioned once that she was taking an art class. I got a 2-word text back. Penelope loved it. No photo, no thank you, call, nothing. I stored that in the part of my chest where I kept everything else, and I moved on. The thing about being the peacekeeper is that you develop a very high threshold for what counts as an actual problem. You recalibrate constantly. You take things that would make a normal person furious and you file them under complicated family dynamics. And you keep going. This is how I almost missed what was happening to my own children. My parents, my mother especially, were doing the same thing Colette was doing, just more quietly. There were family dinners where Penelope sat at the main table and Archer and Bea got set up in the kitchen with tablets and takeout containers. I told myself it was because they were younger. I told myself it was easier that way. I told myself it was easier that way. I told myself they didn't notice. Children notice everything. Archer asked me once, on the drive home from my parents' house, why Penelope got to sit with Grandma and he didn't. He was 5. I said something about how we'd all sit together next time, and I watched him turn back toward the window and accept it the way children accept things they can't change. And something in my stomach turned over. I didn't do anything. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand the whole picture. I was complicit in my own erasure, and I was complicit in my children's. And that's something I've had to sit with. Joel said after that drive home, "One more time, and I'm done. I'm not bringing our kids somewhere to be treated like an afterthought." I said, "Please, let me handle it my way." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Okay. Your way." Penelope's 7th birthday was a graduation party too. She finished 1st grade at a private school in their neighborhood that had some kind of end-of-year celebration they treated like a major milestone. Colette sent out paper invitations. Actual paper in envelopes with calligraphy. We didn't get one. I found out through my mother, who mentioned it in passing while we were on the phone talking about something else entirely. "You know the party's the 14th, she said. Like I already knew. Like of course I already knew. "What party?" Silence. Then, "Oh, sweetheart, I assumed Colette called you." She hadn't. I called Colette. She picked up on the 3rd ring, and I could hear Penelope laughing in the background and silverware on plates. And I thought, they're having dinner. They're all having dinner, and you're calling to ask why you weren't invited to your niece's party. "I was going to call you," Colette said. "It's a small party, mostly Fletcher's colleagues and their kids. Penelope specifically asked for certain friends, and we didn't want to overwhelm her. My kids are her cousins, I said. I know, and they can come to the house another time, Colette. I know how it sounds, but Penelope is particular about things, and she's been going through a phase, you know how kids are. I did not know how that explained anything, but I said okay, because I always said okay. Joel was in the kitchen when I hung up. He was helping Archer with a puzzle. He looked up at me and he read my face in the way he has always been able to read my face, and he said, "They're not going to the party, are they?" "It's fine," I said. He looked back down at the puzzle. "It's not fine," he said. But he didn't push. He'd already given me my way. He was waiting. The party was on a Saturday. My parents took my kids that morning because Joel and I had a thing. I don't even remember what now, some errand, something mundane. And I figured it would be good for them to spend time with their grandparents. Just a normal Saturday. I should have known better. My mother apparently thought it would be nice for Archer and Bea to see their cousin on her special day. My mother apparently decided the kindest thing she could do was pull up the party on her phone while my kids were sitting right there and FaceTime Colette. I don't know exactly how it played out because I wasn't there. I know it from Archer's version, pieced together later, which went like this. Grandma called Colette's phone and the camera was facing the backyard, and there were balloons and a bounce house and a cake with 7 candles. And Penelope was in a pink dress running around with children Archer didn't recognize, and someone in the background yelled, "Penelope, look, it's your cousins!" And Penelope turned toward the camera and looked at them and then turned away and kept running. Bea started crying immediately. She was 4. She didn't have words for it, but she understood completely. Archer, according to my mother, asked very quietly, "Why aren't we there?" My mother said, "You'll see her soon, buddy." He didn't say anything else. He just picked up his juice box and finished it. When Joel picked up the kids that afternoon, Bea was still puffy-eyed. Archer was quiet in the way he'd been quiet in the car that other time. Joel got them home, got them settled, got them into their afternoon routine. Then he came and found me in the bedroom where I was folding laundry, and he stood in the doorway and I knew before he said a single word. "Tell me," I said. He told me. I sat down on the edge of the bed with a pile of Bea's shirts in my lap, and I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I just sat there with those small shirts and thought about my daughter at 4 years old, watching her cousin run away from the camera, and understanding, somewhere in her small body, that she was on the outside of something. "I'm sorry," I said. I wasn't sure who I was apologizing to. Joel sat down next to me. He was very quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I need you to hear me right now. Not as your husband telling you what to do. Just as someone who loves you and loves our kids. What happened today was deliberate. Your mother didn't FaceTime by accident. She knew exactly what she was doing. And your sister knew exactly what she was doing when she didn't invite them. And I need this to stop. I'll talk to them," I said. "No," he said. "I mean, I need it to stop. Not to be addressed. Not managed. Stopped. Not managed. Stopped." I looked at him. "I have the Henderson meeting on Monday," he said. Fletcher worked for Henderson Capital. Joel had been in ongoing negotiations with Henderson Capital for almost a year. A consulting contract, significant, the kind of thing that had kept Joel in late nights and weekend calls for months. Fletcher wasn't the primary contact, but he was involved. They'd had dinners. They'd shaken hands. Joel had been professional and careful the entire time specifically because of the family connection. "Joel," I said. "I'm not going to that meeting," he said. "And I'm going to tell them why." "You can't. I'm going to tell them that I've become concerned about the character of the people involved in this partnership, that I have firsthand knowledge of how they treat family, that I'm not comfortable entering into a long-term professional relationship with people who think it's acceptable to make children cry for sport. That will blow up everything. The contract, I know. Fletcher will tell Colette. Colette will tell my parents. It will be. I know." I stared at him. "Joel, think about what you're walking away from." He looked at me steadily. "I already thought about it. I thought about it while I was watching our son sit on the couch, not saying anything. I don't want money that comes from people like that. I want to tell you that I stood up in that moment and said, yes, do it. I'm with you. I want to give you that version of me. But the truth is, I asked him to wait. I said, let me try one more time to talk to Colette. Let me try to explain what happened to the kids and ask for an actual apology. Let me try my way one more time. He agreed to wait 48 hours. I called Colette the next morning, Sunday. I told her about the FaceTime. I told her what Archer had asked and what Bea looked like when Joel picked them up. I used very plain language. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just described what happened to my children, and I waited for her to respond. She said, Mom was trying to include them. She thought the kids would like to say hi. I said, Colette? She said, I don't know what you want me to say. Penelope's party was Penelope's party. Not every event has to involve your whole family. They're her cousins. They're 4 and 6. They wouldn't have even remembered it. And there it was, the thing underneath all the other things. They don't count enough to remember. My children, 4 and 6 years old, didn't count enough for an actual apology. I said, I need you to say you're sorry. To me. To them. She said, I think you're being dramatic. I said, okay, and I hung up. I sat with my phone in my hand for a while. Then I went and found Joel, and I said, go to the meeting Monday. Tell them what you need to tell them. He looked at me carefully. You sure? I'm sure, I said. And I was. For the first time in a very long time. I was completely sure of something. Joel went to the Henderson meeting Monday morning. He was professional, he was measured, and he withdrew from the contract. He told them he'd had concerns arise about a personal connection to one of the firm's personnel, and that he didn't believe it was the right fit. He kept it contained. He didn't make a scene. He just walked away from a year of work and a contract worth more than I'll say here, and he came home at noon and made us all grilled cheese sandwiches. The fallout started Tuesday. Fletcher called Joel first. Joel let it go to voicemail. Fletcher left a message that Joel summarized for me as confused and then angry. Then Colette called me. I let that go to voicemail too. Then my mother called. I answered my mother. What did Joel do? She said. He withdrew from a professional partnership, I said. That's between him and the firm. Fletcher is furious. Colette is devastated. This is going to cost them, Mom, I said. Did you think about what it was going to cost Archer and Bea when you called Colette's phone at the party? Did you think about that before you held it up so they could watch? Silence. That was different, she said finally. I thought they'd want to say hi. You knew exactly what you were doing, I said, and I think somewhere you know that. More silence. You can't just let Joel go around blowing up relationships because of a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. My daughter was still crying when Joel picked her up hours later. My son asked why he wasn't there, and no one had an answer for him. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a choice your family made, and choices have consequences. My mother started crying. In the past, that would have been the end of it. In the past, I would have softened, apologized for my tone, found some way to make her feel better. It's a deeply trained reflex, and I felt it right there in my chest, the pull of it. I didn't follow it. I love you, I said. I'm going to go now. I hung up. The weeks after that were hard in ways I hadn't anticipated. Not because I regretted it. I didn't. But because grief is strange, and you can grieve a relationship that was never what you needed it to be. I grieved the version of my family I'd spent 28 years trying to hold together with my own hands. I grieved the aunt I'd been to Penelope, the cards with the flowers, the name of the stuffed elephant. I don't know what she was told. I don't know what story she grew up with. Colette didn't speak to me for 3 months. My mother and I had brief, careful conversations about nothing in particular. Fletcher lost the contract, and apparently there were other complications on his end. Business things I don't fully understand and don't need to. I know that what Joel did mattered. I know that there were real consequences. I also know that none of that was the point. The point was Archer on the couch with his juice box. The point was Bea's puffy eyes. The point was 28 years of swallowing things and calling it keeping the peace, when what I was actually doing was teaching the people around me that the way they treated me, and eventually my children, was acceptable. It wasn't. It never was. What changed me was a conversation with Archer, maybe a month after everything blew up. He was in the backyard kicking a ball against the fence, and I went out to sit with him, and I asked him if he ever thought about the day at Grandma's house, the FaceTime. He kept kicking the ball. Yeah, he said. Does it still bother you? He thought about it with the serious focus that 6-year-olds bring to questions they're actually trying to answer. Not really, he said. Dad said, we don't have to go places where people don't want us. He kicked the ball one more time, satisfied with that answer, and then looked over at me. Can we get ice cream later? Yeah, I said. We can get ice cream later. I sat there on the back steps, and I thought about what it would have meant to hear that at 6 years old. We don't have to go places where people don't want us. Just that simple, just that clear. Nobody made me earn it. Nobody made me perform enough grace and flexibility until I was finally allowed to feel like I deserved better. I didn't get that at 6. But my kids got it. That's enough. That has to be enough. And honestly, sitting there on those back steps, watching my son kick a ball in the afternoon sun, without a trace of the heaviness I've been carrying for years. I think it actually is. Colette and I have had one real conversation since. She called on my birthday, which I didn't expect. She didn't apologize. Not exactly. She said she'd been thinking about things, that she knew the kids had been upset, that maybe it had gone too far. It was the closest she's gotten. I didn't push for more. I said thank you for calling. I meant it, and we talked for 11 minutes about ordinary things. I don't know what we are now. Something less than sisters, something more than strangers, something that might grow back over time into something real, if she wants that. I want that. I want my kids to know their cousin. But not the way it was before, not with me absorbing every slight and smoothing every surface and making myself small enough that nobody had to reckon with the space I took up. I take up space now, so do my kids. That's not negotiable. Joel still doesn't talk about the contract, not with regret, not with pride. He just doesn't talk about it. When people ask how business is, he talks about the new work, the new clients, the projects he's building. That chapter is just closed. But sometimes, when the kids are in bed and we're cleaning up the kitchen, I look at him and I think about that Monday morning when he sat in a conference room and walked away from a year of work because he'd seen our son go quiet one too many times. I think about the fact that he waited, that he let me try my way first, that he trusted me to get there. I got there, late and at a cost, but I got there. And for what it's worth, Bea doesn't remember the FaceTime anymore. She's 5 now, and she's mostly concerned with whether the neighbor's dog likes her. It does. And whether strawberry or mango is better. Mango, she has decided, firmly and without debate. She is 5 and whole and loud, and she has not learned yet that she is supposed to make herself smaller. I'm going to work very hard to make sure she never does. I've thought a lot about what actually happened in this story. Not the surface of it, not the party, not the contract, the thing underneath all of it. What happened is that for 28 years, I made a choice. Every single time I let something go, every time I said it's fine and moved on, I was making a choice. I told myself it was keeping the peace. I told myself it was being the bigger person, but the honest version is simpler than that. I was afraid. Afraid of conflict, afraid of loss, afraid that if I stopped being easy to deal with, I'd lose the people I'd been trying to hold on to. And so I held on, and I let them set the terms of what holding on looked like. That's not wisdom. That's a trade you make without realizing you're making it. And you keep making it until one day the cost shows up on your children's faces, and you can't explain it away anymore. Archer didn't throw a fit. He didn't scream or demand answers. He just went quiet and finished his juice box. That quietness was the thing that broke something open in me, because I recognized it. I had been doing that same thing in adult form for decades. Absorbing, adjusting, going quiet. And here was my 6-year-old already learning the lesson I'd been living, that he wasn't quite worth the full seat at the table, that he should take what he gets and not make it a thing. I was not going to let him finish that juice box and grow up thinking that's just how the world works. The cause and the effect here aren't complicated. Colette excluded my children because she had learned through years of zero pushback that there were no consequences for how she treated me or anyone connected to me. My mother, FaceTime that party because she had never once been held accountable for the way she managed relationships, using guilt, using access, using the children as leverage without ever calling it what it was. They did what people do when there are no edges to push against. They kept pushing. Joel understood something I had talked myself out of understanding, that character shows up in how people treat the people they don't have to be nice to. And when he sat in that conference room on Monday morning, he wasn't performing some dramatic gesture. He was just applying the same logic he applied to everything else in his life. That integrity isn't about what you say, it's about what you're willing to walk away from. I got there too. Later than him, and only after trying my way one more time. I called Colette. I gave her a clear, plain, unemotional account of what her choices had done to my children, and she told me I was being dramatic. That was the moment. Not when she excluded the kids, not when my mother held up the phone, not even when Bea came home with swollen eyes. That sentence, "You're being dramatic," because it told me that no amount of explaining was going to land. She had already decided my children's feelings were not worth the discomfort of an apology. So I stopped trying to make them understand, and I started making different choices. That's the whole of it, really. Courage isn't a loud thing. It's not a confrontation or a speech. Sometimes it's just deciding quietly that the version of yourself that keeps going quiet has cost enough, and it's time to let someone else sit with the discomfort for a change. Bea is 5 now. She doesn't remember the FaceTime. She's already moved on to bigger concerns, like whether mango beats strawberry and whether the neighbor's dog has decided she's trustworthy yet. She is whole and loud, and she takes up space like it's her right. I'm making sure she keeps doing that.